69.2% of adults 20 years and older are overweight or obese. This comes down to every 1 in 3 Americans. This shocking statistics from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention brings to our attention just how big of a deal obesity is becoming for our country. The rate of obesity in the United States has been increasing dramatically and will continue to increase unless something is changed. As a nutrition and dietetics major, I've studied obesity and the disease it can cause. My own grandfather was overweight and even developed diabetes. Seeing this firsthand, I know something needs to be done about America's unhealthy eating habits. The United States should implement a fat tax, or a tax on unhealthy foods, in order to prevent obesity and obesity-related diseases. First of all, obesity is a major problem in the United States and can lead to life-threatening diseases. Therefore, a fat tax should be implemented for our country. And finally, execution of this tax would be a smooth process in the United States. A tax on unhealthy foods can finally jumpstart America's weight loss and journey to a healthier lifestyle by preventing diabetes and obesity. Obesity causes many harmful effects on America and its people. Obesity is defined as having excess body fat. This occurs from excessive food intake, and especially those high in saturated fats and sugars. This excess body fat can increase your risk for diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, stroke, and even some types of cancers. It can even lower your life expectancy. In fact, obesity is a leading cause of preventable death worldwide. Obesity is also a major problem with children. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, obesity in children has more than doubled in the past 30 years. An article from The Week quotes obesity being so bad to the arteries of an obese child are as thick and stiff as that of a healthy 45-year-old. This staggering figure shows how much we need to change and how America's children are living. Obesity not only affects your health, but is a problem in the workplace as well. Unhealthy employees tend to be more tired and have a lower immune system, which can lead to decreased productivity and more used sick days. According to NBC News, obesity leads to hidden costs that stem from less productivity among full-time workers, and these costs add up to be about $73 billion a year. The U.S. population and economy can be harmed by obesity. According to the Centers for Disease Control, the rise in obesity affects the U.S. healthcare system and is a burden on the country's medical resources. A financial direct and indirect costs estimate to be about $147 billion a year and rising. This not only affects the obese, but the healthy as well. For all these reasons, obesity is considered a major problem in the United States, and nothing is going to change unless something is done. This is why a tax on unhealthy foods should be implemented. A tax on unhealthy foods would be very beneficial to the United States. Having unhealthy foods be more expensive will lessen their appeal to many Americans. A lot of unhealthy foods are so popular because they're usually quick and inexpensive. Making these foods more expensive will cause Americans to think twice about purchasing them, as well as making them aware about what they are eating. This also applies to children and adolescents. If we can prevent families from feeding their kids unhealthy foods, we can prevent childhood obesity and the diseases they will have in the future. Developing healthy eating habits as a child, or even in college, is the key to keeping a healthy lifestyle throughout your life. A quote from the New York Times article, The Extraordinary Science of Addictive Junk Food, says, "As a culture, we've become upset by the tobacco companies advertising to children, but we sit idly by while the food companies do the very same thing. And we could make the claim that the toll taken on the public health by a poor diet rivals that taken by tobacco. These poor foods we let our children eat are damaging to their health and their future, and we can no longer sit back and watch it happen." A fat tax would also encourage producers to supply healthier foods. It would be an incentive for them to provide foods lower in fats and sugars. Execution of a fat tax has many benefits, and it would also be a smooth process to implement in our country. Implementation of this tax would not be an unfamiliar change in our everyday life. Taxes are a common part of our everyday, and everyone has had some experience with them. Actually, the same concept as a fat tax was put in place for tobacco products many decades ago. As of 1969, all states have had a tax on cigarettes, and stats show that this has dramatically reduced consumption. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities states that tobacco taxes are a proven strategy to reduce smoking. Simply put, the greater amount of tax increase, the fewer cigarettes were bought and consumed. The cigarette tax is a good example of how a fat tax would work, and the results would most likely be similar. Guidelines for this tax would be foods higher in saturated fats and sugars. Some foods can be high in fat, but can also be good for you, so there would have to be regulations on the food to have the tax. These regulations would make Americans realize what foods they are eating and how they are unhealthy for them. On the economic side of taxes, more money would be provided by this extra taxation. This extra revenue could be used to decrease prices on healthier foods or even reduce regressive taxes. Regressive taxes are those that take a higher percent of the income from low-income families. This extra revenue from this tax could be used to lower these regressive taxes in order to keep economic balance. With this policy, Americans will be urged to eat healthier. These healthy eating habits will eventually lead to weight loss and prevention of obesity and obesity-related diseases. For these reasons, I urge you to consider a fat tax on unhealthy foods. First, obesity is a deadly problem in our society and must be prevented and reduced. Therefore, implementation of a fat tax would be very beneficial to our society. Finally, execution of this tax would be a smooth process in our everyday life. By 2013, 42% of Americans will not only be overweight but obese, leading to obesity-related diseases and eventually death. A change must be made in order to protect our society and its people.